Today we're going to be taking a look at identifying points, lines, and planes. Now within this short video you're going to learn about listing and drawing the three undefined terms, defining and identifying collinear points and coplanar points, as well as defining line, segment, ray, initial point, and endpoint. Now one of the things we'll need to do is know the symbolic representation for line, segment, and ray. And the last two things we'll need to do is name points, collinear points, coplanar points, lines, and planes given a diagram. And the other thing we'll need to do from a diagram is name segments, rays, and opposite rays. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Now, our three undefined terms in geometry are point, line, and plane. Now, what you are going to need to know about the point are three things. And I'm just going to kind of go ahead and type that up for you and bring that in here, because these are the three important pieces about the point. It is one of our undefined terms. It has no dimension, and it is represented by a dot. Now let's just kind of think about that from a picture perspective, because I know picture we're pretty solid with that. So a picture, it's just going to be a dot. So we draw a dot. Now the other thing about the picture that we'll need to make sure we take a look at, it's always going to be a capital letter. So we're always going to use a capital letter whenever we write or talk about a point in its diagram. Now the next term we're going to talk about is going to be the line. And the line is one of our other undefined terms, but this particular thing only has one dimension, and it's represented by a line with two arrowheads, and that's kind of self-explanatory. So if you kind of take a look at, there's a line, we've got two arrowheads, and we could put any two letters that we want to make our picture, and we're just going to call this point A and this point B. Now sometimes on one end or the other you might see a small lowercase letter. So if you see a lowercase letter, you could call that line L, or you could call that line AB, or you could even call it line BA. Now symbolically, you could see that written like this, line AB, or if you flip that around, then you could have the B first and the A second, and then the arrow above it. So that's how you represent a line symbolically. And you could also represent it just simply by the letter L. Now our last undefined term is going to be the plane, and a plane is going to have two dimensions. It's going to kind of look like a floor or a wall, but now here's something that's kind of important about the our floor or wall. It's going to go on forever and ever and ever. So you're going to have, I don't know, any 3 points here. We can call one of them A, another one B, and then some point over here C. Any 3 points, you need at least 3 points to make up a plane. Now, sometimes in the corner, you might see a capital letter written, and that's one of the things that's going to differentiate, that you'll notice will be a little bit different. In a plane, you'll see a capital letter in the corner, so you could call this plane M, or you could call it plane ABC. So these are our three undefined terms, point, line, and plane, and each one of them we want to know symbolically what our representation would be and what they'll look like in a picture when we see them. The next thing we're going to talk about are these two terms, collinear points and coplanar points. They're basically exactly what they sound like. For collinear points, they're just points that lie on the same line, and coplanar points are points that lie in the same plane. Now when you want to think about a picture for that, collinear points are just simply any points that lie on the same line. So we'll draw a line, and we'll have these 3 points A, B, and C. So points A, B, and C are collinear. They're on the same line. But if I were to draw another line up here, and label these points, say D, E, and F, well, D, E, and F are collinear. Points D, E, and F are not collinear. They're non-collinear with points A, B, and C because they're on different lines. Now, coplanar points are exactly what they sound like too, just points that lie on the same plane. And this will become a lot more evident as we get further and further into the course, but you just have a couple of points that are all on the same plane. So points A, B, and C, they're coplanar. Now, sometimes you might also have non-coplanar points. So say you're looking at the ceiling, and on the ceiling you see points A, B, and C, but then you look down here on the floor, and down here on the floor you have points D, E, and F. So points D, E, and F are not coplanar with points A, B, and C because they're located on different planes. So that's one of the things, two terms that we'll need to be familiar with: collinear points and coplanar points. Now our last four terms on our super summary sheet are going to be segment, endpoints, ray, and initial point. Now we're going to start right off with the segment and endpoints. And a segment just consists of all the endpoints and all points between them. A segment is just going to look like this. And that's it. So, for that segment, we could call that segment AB. Now, symbolically, you would just have that symbol above it. It's kind of like the line, but it just doesn't have the arrows on the end. Now, you could also call this segment BA, because either way, you're talking about the same piece. So you've got two different components for that. Now, the endpoints are just these guys right here. A and B. So A and B are the endpoints for this segment. Now, ray is going to be a little bit different because a ray is going to consist of an endpoint, sometimes called an initial point, and all the points that extend in only one direction. So one of the things when we're taking a look at this is we're going to have some initial point or endpoint, and it's just going to go on forever in one direction. Now you need another point on there, and sometimes we'll kind of keep with our A and B letters. Now this would be considered ray AB. So that's how you would say that if you saw that if you saw that diagram. Now symbolically, when you see that, you'll have the A and then the B. Now A is your initial point, so the arrow is going to go like that, but it's only going to have an arrow on one end. Now, slightly different, say you had a point and B was now your initial point. So this would be ray BA, not to be confused with ray AB. And ray BA, when you draw that, the B would have to come first because that's your initial point. So that's a really critical point about the ray, is the initial point is always going to come first when you list the two letters symbolically. Now let's start to go ahead and get into this by looking at some of the pictures. Now we're going to use this diagram that we're presented with, and the first thing that we're asked to do is name 4 points that are coplanar. And coplanar, remember, means what? Just that they are on the same plane. So I've got this point K and L and G and point J. So all 4 of those are coplanar. Now you've got to be careful because sometimes people will want to pick H up here, or maybe this M down in here. And M, remember, is not going to be a point. M, because there's no dot by it, just represents the name of the plane. So our 4 collinear points are just, and the order doesn't matter, our 4 collinear points. And again, we use all capital letters, and the order doesn't matter, but you need to have point J, point G, point K, and point L. So those are going to be our 4 coplanar points. Now for part B, we've got to name 3 points that are collinear. And collinear just means that they're on the same line. So if I take a look, on line P, I've got points J, G, and K. So I can use those for my 3 collinear points. So point J, point G, and point K. So those 3 points are collinear. Now moving on to example 2 using this diagram, part A just says go ahead and give us another name for segment AB. So that's just going to be segment BA. So you can write that out in words, or you can just annotate that symbolically with the B first and then the A second in the bar above it. Now part B says name all rays with endpoint B. So, or endpoint P. So endpoint P is right here. Which of these rays are opposite rays? So I've got to take a look at this, and it's really pretty straightforward, because I could have one ray going in this direction, or the opposite ray would go in this direction. So those two rays, if I were to take a look at that for part B, one of them is ray PC, and another ray that's opposite is ray PD. Now remember, the P has to come first because that's our initial point. Now my other ray that's opposite is going to be, I could start right at P and go to A, go through point A, or I could start at P and go through point B. So those are my other pair of opposite rays, where I could have ray PA and ray PB. So each one of those pairs are the opposite rays. PC and PD, ray PC and ray PD are opposite rays, and ray PA and ray PB are opposite rays also.